Hold on, so what's the temperature down there? I guess it has to be like 30 odd or something, right?
It's about 28.
That's Celsius, right?
Yes, 28. Yes, 28, 29 Celsius. Yes, because you use Celsius, I resorted to Celsius.
But no, we don't use Celsius in America. Canada uses. Oh, let me see there. I think no, I don't see him yet. Canada uses the Celsius. I mean, I understand it. Because me only use,
yes,
Fahrenheit.
I just know that when it's in the 30s, it's pretty hot. For us, when it's in the 30s, it's pretty hot.
I saw
it to be in the ballpark of 80 thereabouts.
Yes, I saw where Canada is at -5 degrees Celsius. Now that might work out to be about 30 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 or something like that. I'm not into those kind of things.
Yes, and the UK is in a pretty cold spot as well. A cousin of mine said they were at -2.
Whoa! Oh yeah. So you said Jamaica, they were 30 something. More know what that equates to.
Yeah.
Make a ball for cold. But I understand why you would have ball for cold.
We actually have a cold front.
Let's see, 86. Virgin, 86 degrees. So your 30 can be right.
That's probably, like I said, about 28.
28, but that's still about 80 degrees. You can't be calling out for cold at 80 degree, Virgin.
Yeah, man, there's a wind chill factor and all of that,
I ain't a joke. You are dealing with people who leave Jamaica and went to Canada and London and New York to live. Them the people they can tell you about cold. And when they got a place to live, they don't want to leave at all. They don't want to leave not one bit.
Oh man, I have an uncle in Florida and saying couldn't stand it in the UK. Couldn't stand it.
Oh my God.
So he ended up in New York and said, no, it's just the same almost like the UK. It's Florida.
Thank you to Florida. Oh my God. Okay, so this is Leo Gilling. And this evening, as usual, joined by Dr. Paul Ivy. Good evening, Paul. How are you?
Hi, greetings, Leo. I'm very well, thank you, and I'm happy to be here with you again.
Yes, respect. We expect also Attorney Arnaldo Brown to join us this evening. And before we get into our top topics, I noted that Isat Buchanan got a stay on his 2-year
sanctions.
The 2-year thing. Yes. So now he can continue to practice until it comes out of
the appeal.
Okay. I think the appeal court is a Privy Council, which is something that we're going to be talking about this evening.
He's going to take it to the Privy Council or the local court of appeal.
It says the Privy Council.
No, it can't go to the Privy Council before local.
Because it's superior? Oh, but I could have sworn that's what it said.
It is matters from the Court of Appeal locally that goes to the Privy Council if litigants are so minded.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we need to talk about that because I think people are a bit confused when it comes to the justice system. What the court system look like, the different levels. I think there are like 5 tiers, right?
No, I think there's 3. You have the parish courts.
No, man, there's a lower court below that. The magistrate, there's something magistrate.
What used to be the resident magistrates court is now called the parish courts.
Oh, so the parish court is not circuit court?
The circuit court, isn't the circuit court the Supreme Court?
No. The circuit court is a parish court. from the parish court, it goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has like gun court, revenue court, and another courts up there.
Okay, right, but it's still the Supreme Court.
It's still right.
Different branches. Put that to the lawyer.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask him that.
Put that to the lawyer.
Yeah.
I've been writing about it. It's really from a theoretical standpoint and not as a legal person, you know. Because
okay.
This book I'm working on a portrait of the justice system.
Okay.
But it also has the facts of, you know, what are some of the architectural and structural aspects of the justice system.
Yeah, it was last week. I was looking at it and because I didn't know enough. And then I went in and looked and I saw that at the magistrate level, resident magistrate level, it's the JP, is that what you call them, JPs?
Oh, yes, the justice of the peace.
And the resident magistrate. And then from there,
we don't have resident magistrates anymore.
Oh, okay.
Parish judges.
Oh, so the system changed, the justice system changed.
Yes.
All right.
Looking at the structure of it in terms of the hierarchy of the court, you know, and it basically says here that we have, let's see, 4 tiers.
Okay.
There are 4 tiers: the parish courts, the circuit courts, and the Supreme Court. Yes.
Oh, and then the Privy Council.
And then the Court of Appeal.
So that's 5 then. No, so after the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal is?
The circuit courts and the Supreme Courts are on the same level.
How is that possible? Why would the circuit court and the Supreme Court be on the same level?
You know, for example, where they say that something is before previously the resident magistrates court, and here they say, boy, they carry it on a circuit.
Yeah, we know that. But the circuit generally is that is the Supreme Court?
It says here, the circuit courts and the Supreme Court, which handle more serious cases, and they have original and appellate jurisdiction. And then after that, no, so that's tier 2. And the 3rd tier is the Court of Appeal. And the 4th tier is the Privy Council.
So the Court of Appeal is still landed in Jamaica?
Yes.
And then the Privy Council has to go, yeah, okay, I see.
Above that. So as we had mentioned earlier in the Isaac Buchanan matter, for him to go to the Privy Council, he would have
to go to the appeals. He has to go to the appeals court first.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so he's gonna go to that, and then
based on the outcome, because if the Court of Appeal rules in his favor, that's the end of it. It doesn't have to go to the Privy Council.
Oh, okay, got you. I see, I'm learning. but you know, incidentally, we have on the talk tonight, the Privy Council is trying to connect, he says.
Okay.
Let me send this to him again. Didn't you just click the link?
Yes, that's what I did, but I had to put in the passcode as well.
Okay. You may need to put in the passcode. Okay, you may.
Yes. So he got also the passcode as well, or just the link?
Yeah, he got both. He got both. So I'm not so sure why he's having problem coming in. Maybe he has some issues with his own connection. His phone connection. Yes. Yeah. And so we had a few things on tap tonight. We had the Privy Council, one of them, and since we started talking about that, then maybe we should just jump in. We have the constitutional reform that's going right now, and to understand a little bit more about that. We want to also understand, how does this relate to crime, being Jamaica being one of the highest murder rates in the world, and how does that help with crime? Is it a move to help crime, or is it just a move to just move the system because it outdated and stuff? I mean, and then why is it that they're keeping the Privy Council? What are the benefits of keeping the Privy Council with the new system, and what's the benefit of not keeping it? And then somebody wrote to us last week and said, for the new system that we're trying to the new constitution that we're trying, why do we need a president and a prime minister? Why can't it be just a president or a prime minister? And so, because to me, it makes sense that if you're creating a president or prime minister, you're saying you want to pay more people. If we kick out the crown, why do we need a representative anymore? That kind of thing, right?
Yes, right.
So those are the things that we want to talk about tonight. Privy Council. Tell us about the Privy Council. What is the Privy Council? I know the attorney is supposed to be here to talk about that, but me know so you know. All right?
Well, in a superficial sense, or in a general sense, just to say that, as we just discussed, the Privy Council is actually our fourth tier in terms of the hierarchy of the courts in Jamaica. And it is mentioned at section 110 of the Constitution. That's where the reference is made to the Privy Council in the Jamaican Constitution. And therein lies the basis on which they say that appeals to Her Majesty's Privy Council is granted to Jamaicans under the Constitution. The Constitution is, the Privy Council is not entrenched. Last week, I think I may have said it was entrenched, but it is not.
Right.
It is not entrenched. And so because it is not entrenched, basically removing the Privy Council basically just requires a simple majority in both houses of Parliament, the lower house and the upper house, the Senate. The House of Representatives, lower house, upper house, the Senate. A simple majority can remove it because it is not subjected to section 49 of the Constitution. Section 49 makes reference to how the Constitution can be amended.
To include that.
The Constitution says altering this Constitution.
Okay.
But that section 49 does not make reference to the Privy Council. It only makes reference to removing the Queen, the monarchy. Well, no longer the Queen, the head. 49 makes reference to, among other things, removal of the monarchy as executive authority for Jamaica.
So why are we keeping it? Okay, maybe they needed it initially in 1962, right, to help the transition. But why do we need it 62 years later? Why do we need it? Well, if it just needs a simple majority in both houses, why do we need it?
Aside, it is bound up in the ongoingness, the afterlife of colonialism. And there's also a bit of intention, it would appear, by the Privy Council or the British monarch to use the Privy Council as a tool to continue to rule the ex-colonies. So in recent times, for example, seeing that the momentum is picking up in Jamaica towards the announced Republican status that we have in mind, the constitutional reform that is underway, do you notice that the current president of the Court of Appeal, Lord Reid, and one of his other colleagues, Lord Hodge, recently came out to make statements as if
I saw that
we are still available to you. And then when Gordon Robinson, another attorney at law, dissected Reid's letter that he wrote to the editor of the Gleaner, he said that the Privy Council has over the years played a significant role in the development of the jurisprudence of the colonies, ex-colonies, and as elucidated or as ruled on some important points of law. In other words, we are still their pupils. We are still their pupils and are still being taught by them about the niceties and the intricacies of law and those kind of things. So we really don't need it except for the fact that it's a colonial relic, it's an anachronism, and really and truly we have come of age. We have grown up enough to be able to have our own final court. And we have established the Caribbean Court of Justice. And the last point in this is the fundamental point of it, as in terms of why it concerns us. Putting ourselves in charge of ourselves. That is the motivating factor.
I so appreciate that. I want to recognize that Attorney Arnaldo Brown is online and he's kind of shifting like he doesn't have good internet service there. So, but I wanted to welcome Arnaldo. He's a good friend for a long time. He was the foreign minister during the previous regime, if I may say that, 2013, 2012 to 2016. And he's here tonight because me kind of get confused. And so I need a little bit more help aside from my colleague, Paul, about some of these issues that are coming up. Last week, after we came off of the show, Arnold popped me up and said, it needs some little clarification there. And you actually clarified it this evening when you say it's not what in the Constitution, it's not binding. What did you what? It's not entrenched. It's not entrenched. And he kind of gave me that. Good evening, Arnaldo. Good to see you. Long time. And I'm sure you know Dr. Paul Ivy. Paul Ivy. Is he get stuck?
Yes, I think yes, he's frozen.
Yeah. Maybe you can turn off your video just for a minute until you have good signal so we can hear it. It's probably gone. So someone sent me an article this evening, and the article asked some critical questions about the let me see if I can get him back. About the Privy Council. And let me go down the questions. Why would a country seek republic status but maintain foreign court as a final court of appeal? That's one question. The Privy Council has the power to overrule decisions made by Jamaican courts and interpret Jamaican laws as they deem appropriate. Yet they don't live here, they don't understand the culture, but they're going to be our final court. The thing is, this contradicts the meaning of independence. That's really what that person says. No republic currently has a final court of appeal outside of its own country. Generally, republics have their own fully independent court of appeal, except Barbados and Trinidad, whose court of appeal is the CCJ, the Caribbean Court of Appeal, right? Did I say that right? CCA.
Caribbean Court of Justice.
Caribbean Court of Justice. Yeah, thank you very much. Most Jamaicans cannot afford legal representations, particularly for the expense of representation at the Privy Council is really too high, because they're not going to travel, they don't have the money if you go out there. So if they fight it to the Court of Appeal and they don't have the money for go England, them lose the case. The judges on the Privy Council do not represent Jamaica's population and therefore lack understanding and sensitivity on local customs and tradition. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this argument of abolishing appeals to removing the monarchy and still retaining our final court as the Privy Council, it is ludicrous. It defies logic. Why would you remove the monarchy and then still retain their court?
But that means they're not removing the monarchy. Because what else does the monarchy have? I mean, think about it for a minute. The last thing is, but let me ask you this. I read something where the Queen is still a member of the Parliament.
Well, no, well, Section 68 of the Constitution says that executive authority of Jamaica resides in the Queen and now the King. Executive authority resides in the monarchy. That is embedded in our Constitution even as we speak. In fact, any laws enacted in Jamaica speaks to in her majesty, in her excellent majesty, so and so, so and so, so and so.
So because the laws are created in the Parliament, and the Queen being yeah, I see what you're saying. So it's not just one place. We have to take them out. We have to take them out of the Parliament and out of the appeals court.
We have to craft a constitution for ourselves in terms of putting ourselves in charge of ourselves. So, for example, when it says that the Governor General, and at the other dimension of it, so the law is passed in the name of the monarchy, it goes to the Governor General, the monarchy's representative, for what they call assent. The Governor General gives his assent on behalf of the monarchy. So you see, this thing is embedded.
Oh my God, because even in the court system, somebody just texted me and said, even in the court system, the prosecution is the crown.
Yes, yes. Regina versus whomever
the crown, right? Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. And
then at the start of every court proceedings, oh ye, and they go into and they go into a appeal concerning the monarchy. So the thing is so pervasive. It's like a parasite. That the tentacles
going all over,
all throughout. Because you see, the Constitution, that we have here is actually an order in council of the Privy Council on July 23rd, 1962. That's how it came about, as an order in council where it says that the authority vested in the monarchy, that she's pleased by and with the advice of her Privy Council to order, and it is hereby ordered that this order that they gave on the 23rd July 1962 may be cited as the Jamaica Constitution Order in Council 1962. So that's where it originated, and we have had it since then.
So we couldn't get independence without that document because it's July 23rd. Lord of mercy.
And what I have learned is that there is a thing which I've never looked into. We just know about the Independence Proclamation, but there's an Independence Act. There is an Independence Act, which is a piece of legislation.
Right.
Which I've never perused, and I'm going to look at it now that it has come to my attention. Because the Independence Act and the Order in Council of 1962, they are kind of companion legislation that came out round about.
Right, yes. It makes sense. Because the declaration is just a declaration. The act is the act. It's the law.
So here we are, talking about making the transition to a republic and removing of the monarchy. Now, the interesting thing about this is that a constitutional amendment is required to remove the monarchy.
So all right. Let's talk about that for a minute. So you can't just write a new constitution and put it on the books.
No.
You have to get rid of this constitution. So there's going to be a moment when our country is without a constitution.
Not necessarily. You have to.
You can't.
You have to go to Parliament. So you keep the existing one. You go to Parliament with a bill to effect the changes. Because remember now, there have been over the years.
It's not a change though.
No, just a second. Some tiny amendments to the Constitution.
Right.
There have been some tiny amendments. So for example, when we put in the Charter of Rights replaced in Chapter 3 and so forth. So there have been some, for example, the Constitution was amended recently to increase the retirement age for the DPP and the auditor.
I remember that too, yes.
So there have been these tiny amendments. So the point I'm making is that for a big amendment such as the one requiring the removal of the monarchy, a bill has to go to Parliament.
Okay, so it remains what it is first. Okay, got you.
Just as in the case of any other changes, you take a bill to Parliament.
Okay,
but this particular bill is so
yes, because it's already so entrenched. They're going to have to come up with something that will wipe out all of that snake that runs through the system, right?
Exactly, and it is so configured in terms of the architecture that they made it so difficult
for it to be removed
at the onset.
All right, so therefore, instead of removing the monarchy, the crown, instead of removing, they could just then get a 2/3 something, we call it, vote
majority
to just replace the existing constitution.
No,
no,
not in its totality.
It can't. So what is a reform? What is a reform? Because in the reform, I am thinking, in order for them to reform, they have to remove this one and put in one for the Republic. Tell me.
Yes. No, Section 49 of the Constitution sets out how changes are to be made to the Constitution. So any reform
has to go through that.
Apply with what's set out in Section 49. And concerning the monarchy now, it requires a constitutional amendment.
Yes, I understand.
To include a referendum.
Yes.
Yes. So you see how they dug it in. They dug it in. So it requires.
It's like removing milk out of coffee, right?
something like that. You need sophisticated equipment and high-level technologies and so forth. So now there are prescribed time frames. If we had a lawyer here, they could recite what is required here. When you table the bill, you have to wait 3 months for the first reading. And after the first reading, you have to wait another 3 months, and so forth. And after you pass it 2/3 in both houses, then you have to take it to the people in the form of a referendum. The other way around. Either you get the referendum and then you pass it in the house, or you take the bill to the house at first, and then you have to get a referendum and so forth. So that's the big one. That's actually the big one. The removal of the Privy Council is less.
Is easy to accomplish.
It's easier
because it's not embedded in the Constitution at all.
So far as the law is concerned, but
when you
come to the mental.
Yes, I know about that part. Yes,
when you come to the mental enslavement,
you have to get past those people who's already who embed themselves in the monarchy.
Yes. In fact, Tiaga said that the Privy Council is the source of pure justice.
Yes.
And if you heard recently in a case that she was involved in, eminent lawyer Valerie Robertson said she's all for the Privy Council.
That's the embeddedment that I'm talking about. The people who are embedded into the monarchy, because you have to get past them.
Yeah, exactly. When it comes to the Privy Council,
right? Yes.
You have to deal with the entanglements of the intricacies of removing the monarchy.
Yeah, he's supposed to be here now. I don't see him. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Unentrenched Privy Council. It is the mental enslavement that we have to get around.
Oh my gosh. What did we want from the attorney? We wanted him to, well, we have to bring him up to speed, but we want him to recite something.
Yeah, just the crispness of what the process is as set out in the Constitution. In being a lawyer, like the steps that would be involved in removing the monarchy. because it sets out at section 49, no, sorry, section 68, how to remove the monarchy. No, not section 68. 68 is where it is indicated that the executive authority lies in the monarchy. Section 49 sets out how do you make changes to the constitution to include removal of the monarchy. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's quite an interesting, that's almost like astronomy, that discussion. They're talking about, you sound like a physicist.
Yeah.
I'm glad we had that conversation. And I'm sure we're going to have more of those. Let me see if I can move this to Facebook so that other persons can join us on Facebook.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Please just bear with me. Let me find myself here so that I can take you and move you. Yeah, I'm here. There it is. We're live on YouTube. Copy link. And okay, we have Nikki East from Halifax in Hanover, and Karen Rose says good evening. We have a couple of people listening. Good evening to you all. Let me see if I can move this to Facebook so that some people who are on Facebook can also get a chance to listen to this, because this topic is something that many of us do not know. We take life for granted because we expect that other people are going to know this stuff and be able to let us live without having to think about it. But it is important for us to know, because when our politicians, our elected officials make decisions, you also want to be able to know why they do it, if they had the right to do it. It just becomes more. Oh, he's on.
Yes.
Ronaldo, good evening and welcome.
Yes, are you hearing me?
We can hear you quite clearly. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And sorry that
Right.
you're having some problems.
Apologies, I'm having some connectivity issues.
Yes. We can even hear it in when you speak. There's a little drag here and there. So, all right. Yes. So I'm gonna let Paul. You know Paul, right? You know Paul Ivy, right?
Yes. I've seen him, and I think I'm.
Greetings, Mr. Brown. I followed your career when you were Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also your career as a lawyer. Yes.
All right. So he has we've gone through the Privy Council, the ins and outs, and he brought up some really good topics. I didn't even realize that there was a difference between having the Privy Council and having the crown or the monarchy entangled into our political system. I didn't even realize that's a whole heap of things to get rid of. It's like getting, as I said to him a while ago, it's like getting rid of, getting milk out of coffee, the way that he expressed it. So I hope that you can bring some more light and some more clarity. Well, he's very clear, but some additional information to us about the Privy Council, why we have it, why we need it, why we don't need it, and then the point of the crown in the middle of our parliamentary and our justice systems that we can't seem to just get rid of, just like with a vote. So give us some thoughts there.
All right. So first that we have
okay, Arnold, it's really bad. We're not hearing you at all. It's breaking up really badly. You may need to go to a different. No, we're not hearing it. Not clear at all. Naldo?
Yes.
I mean, we see green, but we know that you're not saying anything, really. Are you not saying anything? Are we not? Are you saying, oh, there is gone. All right. So, let me just make sure that we're on Facebook before we go. Yes, it's showing on Facebook.
Yes.
All right. So we talk about the Privy Council. Okay, there he is again. Let me see if I can hear him. Say something, another. Say something, another. We're not hearing him. All right. I wanted to know, Paul, from you.
Yes.
We're going through all of this motion of trying to reform our constitution. But was that a move to help us reduce crime, change mentalities in our country, change the way people? What is that? What is all this processing for? Because I don't see the need. Listen, I want the crown to be gone, no doubt about my mind. But I also want to see, why is this a necessary move to spend a lot of money if we're not getting the whole full-blown thing? You know, is this impacting crime? Is it changing something about how we operate as a people, how we relate to each other as a people? Or this is just pure labeling of something at the top? What is it?
No, I don't think you should look at it in such a kind of linear fashion, like a straight line from one to the other. If we put it in a broader context to say this, what does true independence means? We have to start there. True independence means that we are in charge of ourselves fully. As it is now, we still have the overlords in the Privy Council, and we still have to pay homage to the monarchy. After 61 years of independence, it is full time for us to have our dignity and our full sovereignty reflected in our own governance arrangements. This constitution was given to us essentially, like I said, as an order in council of the Privy Council in 1962. We must put ourselves in charge of ourselves. We have to now reform the constitution so that our governance arrangements are such that they are more effective, because I have come to the view that, you know, when you do root cause analysis for problems, you have to get to the root of it. And I believe that poor governance is at the root of our many problems in Jamaica, including the crime problem. So
I hear it. Okay, go ahead.
So when we go to the reform of the constitution, we're going to change the governance arrangements to make them more effective. As it is now, we have a prime minister with a lot of power. We want to...
That's one. Okay, that's what I want to hear. Yes.
So you see, that's where we're going.
Okay.
So when we make changes to the constitution, where, for example, MPs, members of parliament are not beholden to their party, but they are beholden to their constituents. So we have an arrangement, for example, where we might say a member of parliament ought not to be a minister of government. You may choose the cabinet in a different way than you now have this current situation, so that the parliament becomes the vehicle to hold the executive accountable.
I like that a lot.
We have a situation where members of parliament who are ministers, they go to the same very parliament and they bang the desks in support of their party, and the parliament is not holding the executive accountable.
And whether or not that is being said on the floor at that time is wrong. You know, whether or not it's wrong, because you're beholden to the party, you're not the debt anyway. Knowing that it goes against the logic, it goes against your values, it goes against everything as a person, you still bang the desk and say, yeah, right?
So
that's what you're saying.
Yes.
And hold on. And then the other thing is the prime minister has the singular role of shifting anybody around, even though they're elected officials. That's what you're saying too.
There's that too.
And so with him having that kind of power, yes, with him having that kind of a power, all he has to say is, you know, anything, and the rest of the whole crews have to go along with it.
Because one of the things that persons want, you know, is to be a minister. So they want to be in the cabinet, so they are kowtowing in order to get into the cabinet.
Yes.
And some prime ministers have been known to use pre-signed letters of resignation. People in line.
Right.
The situation with this current prime minister was not new. It wasn't the first. He was just simply emulating something that he saw
before
by one of his mentors. So the constitutional reform process is not just a cosmetic exercise, because we have to now fundamentally change our governance arrangement. Take, for example, the matter to do with election dates. We want to have that embedded in the constitution to have
so that they have the prime minister don't have no say as to whether or not, because the election is going to be held on the day.
In the UK, they changed the law to have election dates being fixed. And of course, in the US, the election date has been fixed from about 18 something.
Yes.
And so on and so forth. So you see, when we come to these type of things now, so if you have term limits as part of a new constitution. So I'm saying these are some of the proposals that are on the table.
Based on what you're saying, it is giving people a little bit more for their votes. It's giving them a little bit more power, because the ministers will only have their role towards their constituencies and not to the prime minister.
The members of parliament.
And you're also members of parliament. I'm sorry. There's a difference between a member of parliament and a minister. Some serve as members of parliament and also have a ministry in the cabinet of the prime minister. And that's two different jobs, two different salaries. The minister actually looks at the national interest, while the MP looks at a regional interest. Am I saying that right?
Constituency, but it's not two separate salaries. It's not two separate.
Oh, it's not two separate salaries?
No. They don't receive two separate salaries.
So but you can be a minister without having a constituency if you're a senator.
A few ministers can come from the Senate. Yes, so you can get a minister out of the Senate, but the number is limited that you can pull from the Senate. Without being elected, right?
Okay, so therefore, as a senator, if that senator becomes a minister, right? What salary does that senator draw from the Senate or the minister?
The minister, from the minister.
So once you are an MP, if you're an MP and you're making $200,000, you get a job as a minister in the prime minister. You're saying that $200,000 don't move?
No, you get the minister's salary because it would be the higher of the two.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Okay, gotcha. All right. So we're talking the same thing. Okay.
So I'm going further now to the point of how the connection to crime, for example.
Right.
If constituents are able now to have a greater leverage over their members of parliament in terms of accountability, they will now be forced, if you will, to do the right thing. And if members of parliament are holding the executive accountable, and if constituents are holding their members of parliament's feet to the fire, we will get better governance. And if we get better governance, the country will be better run. So as it relates to crime, for example,
a little less corruption, right?
Well, look, somebody has said that part of the issue driving crime in Jamaica is the moral bankruptcy that is at play.
Yes.
Because there is that intricate link between crime and corruption. So if the accountability factor goes up, then the corruption factor is likely to go down, and with it, the associated crime and other dysfunctionalities in the society. Because remember now, the Constitution is the supreme law of a country. And if in the reform process we get it right, then it means that what guides us will be a better framework within which to take care of our business. That's why it is of fundamental importance for us to reform the country, and that's why the process requires the input of the people. And what was initially proposed when the minister came out after the ministry was established, the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, when it was established, one of the first pronouncements the minister made was that she was going to Parliament the May, which would have been like 2 or 3 months after the ministry was established. In May, by the end of May 2022, I think it was, or 23, she was going to take 22, was going to take a bill to Parliament.
So quick.
Yes, and people are saying,
so she probably just went out and draw down a bill from another country and say, okay, this is in my mind.
Remember, what happened was that there had been ongoing discussions about this constitutional reform,
Right.
Golden, PJ Patterson,
so where did it come from?
Siaga and all of those, they were having discussions between the PNP, the JLP in the past. So what she picked up was not a bill from somewhere else, but the old notes and the whole discussions, and was running to come with it just as it was, without starting a new process all over, getting the buy-in of people. But if you notice the pushback from the citizens, no bill went to the Parliament in May as she was contemplating. They had to go back to the drawing board, so to speak. And the process itself is still not going as one would anticipate in terms of the public education, the public engagement, and all of those kind of things. So it's not living up to the expectations as far as I'm concerned. And now that we are in election mode and all of those type of things, this is kind of like on the back burner.
I saw that because you don't hear anything anymore forums going around the country.
Because what was contemplated, yes, we don't see those what they call them, town halls, yes. Yeah. Because what was contemplated, was that they were coming because they were said that both parties had agreed, had a prior agreement for a ceremonial president. That's what they were saying, that there was disagreement between the both parties for a ceremonial president. But the Jamaican people are saying, no, we don't want that. We don't want you to replace the monarchy and then put in place another figurehead.
Why do we need that? Why do we need that? That's crazy. That's somebody else going to make some money.
What is the cost that is involved?
Yeah.
The cost that is currently involved for the upkeep of the Governor General's arrangement.
Oh my God.
So what's $300 million,
per year? Know. US dollar.
Jamaican, no man. 300 million Jamaican dollars per
year.
The last set of figures that I saw. It's probably higher because this was like from the 21-22 financial year. I got a copy of the budget and I saw where the vote for the allocation for the GG was $300 million to upkeep. So you're now going to remove the monarchy and have a local figurehead.
And give him $300 million.
A ceremonial figurehead that has a call of 300. Well, it's not in this pocket, it's to upkeep. So people are now saying the public sentiment is that people want an executive president. We don't want to replace the monarchy with another local figurehead. We want an executive president. That's what the public sentiments are.
do you want the president to work hard for his bills? That means he's going to go across, go down his or her aisle and then go across the aisle to work.
To the bipartisan, kind of
yes.
bipartisan.
Do you want that? Do you want that? Because, yeah, is that?
Because what people are saying is that not only do they not want a ceremonial, they want an executive, and they also want the president to be elected. So you don't have a situation where a party gets the majority and then they choose who the prime minister is. Because as it is right now, we're really not voting for a prime minister,
No, we don't vote for a prime minister. So it don't really matter their popularity at all, but
Because part of the new arrangement that is being contemplated and what some stakeholders are saying, let us have a directly elected president.
In a republic, that's probably what is expected.
Because what persons are saying, instead of doing this thing in a kind of half-hearted manner, make fundamental changes to the arrangement, not this incremental window dressing type of thing, which goes back to the other point. How do you remove the monarchy?
Yeah, that's my point. I still asking that.
It defies logic and it defies the entire process of what is contemplated here. Because the Constitution as a supreme law, it is also now to make the changes, also to further entrench rights-based citizenship in the Constitution. Rights-based citizenship. In 2011, the Charter of Rights was finally passed. You know that it took the Charter of Rights 17 years of gestation and discussion and whatever before it was eventually passed. Because what persons need to appreciate is that constitutional rights mean that it is what protects those rights are what protects the citizens against governmental overreach and prescribes, kind of put government in straitjacket, A constitution puts a government in straitjacket in terms of how they are to operate.
Well, I was kind of bringing that to forefront. Something scared me last week. As you brought out this thing with the Minister of the Constitutional Affairs, right? Where she came up and said she wanted to bring a bill to Parliament in 3 months. And what that means, she has enough votes on one side to just pass the bill, right? Just like SOEs, state of emergencies, everyone on one side can just vote without even taking in consideration the opposition and put a bill in and pass it and it's gone, right? And then what scared me last week was this hate speech thing that came out, right? I don't know if you remember, there was a big hoopla last week about the Prime Minister saying that he wants to consider hate speech as a crime, which means they're going to put in something, that kind of concerned me because I wasn't so sure that if he had the authority to go ahead and put it on the bill and run it through, and then our freedom of speech get taken away from us. Because that was popped up in my head. I need your thoughts on this.
No, that's not possible. Because if you notice, even with the SOEs, they have had to be using that little technique of allowing the 14 days to run out,
and then
renew, because it requires a 2/3 majority to have this. It requires the support of the opposition, the 2/3 majority, at least one senator. They can have the majority in the lower house, because they have the majority there. But because of how the Senate is configured, they need at least one opposition senator to vote with them for that majority to be.
So they're renewing it instead of reapplying for a new one. They can't apply for a new one without the opposition. Help me there.
No, they can't extend it. They can't extend it. They have to put in a new one because that majority is required, in particular, up in the Senate. But now to the hate speech thing. It is fortunate that the Charter of Rights was eventually passed in 2011. That replaced chapter 3 of the Constitution, section 13 of chapter 3 of the Constitution. And what it says here is that it speaks to the right of freedom of expression to hold and express whatever opinions that people have, including political opinions. And it goes on to say that Parliament shall pass no law and no organ of the state shall take any action which abrogates, abridges, or infringes those rights. So it seems to me that as much as the Prime Minister has voiced that intention, he's going to have a big collision with the Constitution.
Because it does say that, it does say, if I may quote this, the right to freedom of expression. All persons in Jamaica are entitled to the right to freedom of expression and the right to seek, receive, distribute, disseminate information, opinions, and ideas through the media. Which means, and it sounded like it's what's going on social media that the Prime Minister had a problem with. I'm not so sure what is hate speech, and where would he have garnered that thought? Why he had to come up with a law to prevent people from speaking? Help me to understand what is hate speech and where would he have garnered that?
According to them, and that is why some presidents of some major universities in the US have gotten into problems recently. They are saying that hate speech essentially incites violence against particular groups or individuals. It incites violence or harm or advocates harm for. That's basically the bottom line.
I understand that in the United States.
Yes.
I understand that in other countries. I'm talking about in the context of Jamaica. What kind of hate speech would he be referring to that he would want to create a law against?
I am not aware of hate speech except for, it has been said that the Jamaican society is homophobic. There has been that over the years. But in terms of anything new, I don't know of any newness as it relates to hate speech in the Jamaican space, except that on social media, people have been demonstrating a kind of liberation in terms of what they're able to say. And in my mind, it's probably because I don't think you could call insults or
that's not hate speech.
The word I'm looking. Insult, if you insult somebody or you use abusive language per se, if that amounts to hate speech.
No, it doesn't.
And also, if you libel anybody, I think it's probably the absence of libel and defamation laws and how the social media seems to be a kind of Wild West situation.
But those can go to the court.
Exactly. That's my point I'm coming to. Those can go to the courts. So there is no need for this. But there is a view in some quarters, as seen by certain actions, that there's a kind of creeping authoritarian streak that we're kind of seeing emerging. And it has its genesis in the first NIDS bill, and we see it in the repeated renewal of the SOEs and that type of thing. So in
the NIDS, like, oh, hold on, here, he's coming on. Let me see if I can get him. Arnaldo, are you there? I accepted him, but he's not there. I'm so sorry about that. You were saying
time, there is what I called, and I've written about this, a kind of quintet of persons who seem to have a fixation on
punishment. No,
not punishment, on the abridging of constitutional rights. I see him in and out.
Yeah,
so for example, when he was Chief of Defense Staff, Brigadier Meade, the Minister of National Security, the Prime Minister, the Commissioner of Police, and the Minister of, she was Attorney General at the time, now Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. That quintet seems to have a kind of disposition towards the abrogation of constitutional rights. Because you see it and their utterances. For example, they will say that you must breach constitutional rights because the right to life supersedes all other rights and so forth. And at one time, you know, the view was expressed that constitutional rights and those kind of things, I will leave those to the academics to debate there, and so on and so forth. So they have a kind of, I wouldn't say it's a cavalier approach, but the kind of respect that is to be accorded to constitutional rights in a free and democratic society. I don't think that appreciation as to what constitutionalism is. Constitutionalism means that the Constitution is the supreme law.
Yes. All right,
and only as provided for in the Constitution can you curtail those rights.
All right, so let's stop there for a minute. Let's see if we can get Arnaldo online. Arnaldo, are you there?
Are you hearing me?
I can hear you.
Well, there's actually a service outage in my area.
Oh,
and that has been so from 10 a.m. this morning. So
okay.
they have been working to rectify the problem. So I have extremely unstable service.
You can hear it,
right?
But,
so
yeah,
again, I apologize to your viewers. Yeah. This is a conversation I definitely want to get into. And as I indicated, you know, I'm prepared when we have more stable internet to come back on. I don't know how much time you have left today in the program, right?
We can go on. We can have another half hour for you because you're here.
Okay. Sure. So I just want to pick up one of the interesting developments since independence is actually the passage in 2011 of the what we call the Charter of Rights, right? And the intention of that amendment was to make the Chapter 3 of the Constitution justiciable, meaning that you could go to the Supreme Court directly without seeking to exhaust any other remedies to have our righs defended.
Oh.
And since the passage of that piece of legislation, we have had the needs, we have had challenges to the amendment to the Bail Act, where there was a provision to have people detained for up to 60 days without the question of bail being raised. That was struck down as unconstitutional. We have had the national identification system that was totally ruled to be unconstitutional. And that decision, I believe, is important in terms of helping us to understand what the Chapter 11 is about, what fundamental rights are about, what the Bill of Rights, as we call it, is about. And your colleague Dr. Ivy used the term in a free and democratic society. The act also, that decision also seeks to set out what is meant by a free and democratic society, right? So that the context within which rights are enforced is now, in my view, a bit more robust. We have seen, for instance, the challenge by 5 detainees of the use of the SOEs. This is still going through the courts, but the courts ruled that their detention was not in keeping with the Constitution. And in fact, I believe the government has appealed that decision, and we're waiting to see the outcome of that.
So did they release them? Did they release the
Yeah,
file?
they were released, right? They
Okay,
were
okay.
released, right?
Okay.
So I want to put that squarely on the table. At the same time, the amendment or the introduction of the Bill of Rights in 2011 also repealed section 50 of the Constitution, which speaks about special acts of parliament that will lead to the suspension of these rights, but it did not take away the power to enforce zones of special, well, not zones, no,
SOEs.
state of emergencies, right? SOEs,
Right.
right? Because there is a piece of legislation that was brought to Parliament about the zone of special operations. That's a separate piece of legislation, more akin to what would call the Suppressions of Crime Act that was introduced in the 1970s when gun violence was emerging and becoming a monster, right? Now, suffice it to say that the Suppressions of Crime Act was repealed 20 years after its introduction because it was an abject failure. It did not lead to a reduction in crime, right? And ironically, the same administration, because it was a PNP administration at the time that had introduced it, is a PNP administration that brought it to an end, right? Because the fact is that these draconian measures do not work. So this idea of what you would call it now, restricting the liberties of people for security, it is a false idea. And regrettably, it is not just the quintet that Dr. Ivy would have spoken to that subscribe to it, but there are significant segments of the Jamaican population that believe in that approach. Yes. And that is why you find among the populace what you would call it now, support, for want of a word, for these types of measures. But again, if you look at the research, they do not work. They are abject failures. In fact, before this new thrust for mandatory minimum sentences by this administration, mandatory minimum sentences was in place having regard to gun offenses, and the courts complained because the discretionary powers of the judiciary is fettered by the introduction of mandatory minimum sentences, and people don't understand what this means. So I'll give you an example. There's a case, right, where a man with a gun was fleeing from the police. This is a case. He ran into a gentleman's house, left the gun in that house. The gentleman retrieved the gun, handed it to the police, and the police charged the man for illegal possession of firearm.
But in his own home? In his
own house, right? And this is a true case, right? He was taken before the court and was convicted of illegal possession of firearm. And they appealed. The Court of Appeal, I believe, upheld the conviction, but they suspended the sentence, right? Now, if this were to happen under this regime of mandatory minimum sentence, he would have 15 years in prison.
And right? You know, it's the same problem in America that the court had. The judges are they're upset about mandatory minimum sentences because it doesn't give them, it takes away all of their authority. As
Precisely.
soon as you weed, ganja, for example, or gun, for example, you go into the court, and as long as it's gone, you get 5 years or 10 years, or you know what I mean? That's it. It doesn't matter what your case is.
And the truth is that it is really a trespass. It's a trespass on the judiciary, in my view, right?
Yes.
Because in Jamaica, we do have the notion, right, of separations of power. Granted it's quasi because the executive and the legislature is fused based on our parliamentary system, but the judiciary has independence. So when the legislature and by extension the executive introduces mandatory minimum sentences, what it is doing is trespassing on the independence of the judiciary, right?
Might as well
And it is
you never go to school, right? might as well you didn't go to school. Just go and sit down on the bench and just give it out, right? It's true.
and it is a knee-jerk reaction to what is happening, because let's face it, there is no quick fix, there's no magic bullet, there's no panacea
Right.
to addressing the crime situation in the country. And what they will tell you is that the SOEs are working, but they really are not working. What is working is the presence of the police.
Right.
No,
but that doesn't really do anything.
No, you do not need SOEs to have the police present, because the police have other powers, right? Under the JCF Act and under the same Zones of Special Operation Act. So we don't need a SOE to have saturation.
Okay,
what the SOE does is that it takes away the right, not just of criminals, let's be clear. It takes away the rights of ordinary citizens. So a policeman in a SOE can see you and arrest you for no reason at all.
Arnold, but you're making a point that the stats, the data tells us. Because I looked at these stats yesterday on murders in and I thought I'd been hearing how murders have been reducing all year, and I look at the numbers and say we're almost 1,400. That don't really change the numbers that it's been for the past 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, right?
Exactly. No.
And so it means that whatever is out there is not working, and they need something else that's going to work.
Let me make a point.
What does work? And again, in spite of what Capri might have said, what does work is social intervention, right? And I heard the Minister of National Security saying that social intervention doesn't work because the fellows are rich. That is not true. Social intervention, if you were to look at this Citizen Security and Justice Program, in every community that there has been a Citizen Security and Justice Program initiative, the murder has dropped precipitously. The unfortunate thing is that the CSJP primarily has been funded by donor countries, not the government of Jamaica.
All right, and we're going to take that. I'm going to take Paul's thought. Go ahead, Paul. You're going to say something.
I wanted to make the point that to complement some of what Mr. Brown has said, that in relation to rights, just going back to that and to make the point that what we need to underscore in Jamaica is he gave the account of the Charter of Rights, which I had alluded to earlier and so forth.
You did.
Rights-based citizenship. We need to respect and embrace rights-based citizenship in this country. There was a case, Gary Emans versus the Attorney General, where Justice Batts gave a treatise, a dissertation on constitutional rights, in which he said that they are not trappings, they're not just merely trappings that go with statehood, but they are the product of over 400 years of conflict. And he recited the struggles that we had as a people from enslavement all the way through to colonization into independence. And that these rights are the product of hard-won struggles of people. So that we can't just arbitrarily or easily give them up because people want to say that they are fighting crime, or to give the impression that they are fighting crime when they are engaged in futilitarianism. We need to go to the social determinants of crime, which I have been saying. Sociologists, criminologists, and others, they know that there are a suite of factors that contribute to crime. So in seeking to cauterize the crime problem that we have in Jamaica, we need to deprive crime of its nutrients. That's what we need to do. The social determinants, the nutrients, the incubator, the seed bed that is producing crime, that's where we need to target the interventions.
And that's what he's saying. That was his last point about social interventions. But he's also saying that the social interventions are not, in essence, social interventions must be tied to policing. It's called community-based policing. So that the police gets a chance to respect community gets a chance to respect police. Legitimacy is derived from that. And so therefore the programs run smoother. I mean, I was a part of a discussion last week that had something up. They're seeking funding from the diaspora about community programming. And I say, that don't work. The government has to be fully involved in any social, well, there are going to be social programs that are assigned, but the ones that will take down crime in a way that we need to see it are the ones that are tied with the justice system. Go ahead.
But others have said it, Mr. Brown has said it here as well, that the philosophical commitment is not there. The philosophical commitment is not there.
Right.
The philosophical commitment is for harsh punishment, more severe thing. It is the punishment model that we are prosecuting rather than the other approach that the science has shown.
And I see that in the NIDS. I see that in the teachers' bill. One second, Arnaldo. I see that in the NIDS bill. They want to punish you if you don't. They say that in the teachers' bill, they want to punish teachers. And it's like everything is about punishment. It's like they're taking the responsibility off of themselves, that the government is taking responsibility off of its own self and putting it into the people's hands and saying, are you responsible to pay for it? So go ahead, Arnaldo.
Right. I was going on to make the point, right, that one of the statistics that you need to look at is the clear-up rate.
Oh, so
right. And if you look at the clear-up rate, you'll recognize where the problem lies, because these laws will not deter anyone because nobody is being caught.
Nope.
The greatest deterrent is the certainty of being caught.
Absolutely.
So rather than focusing on
severity,
what you really should do is to focus on strengthening the ability to detect, prevent criminal activity, and to catch the perpetrators of criminal activities. Right?
Create general deterrence.
If people are convinced that they are going to be caught, they will think twice.
Absolutely.
But if you, and interesting, because I did listen to your program when you had Senator Crawford on, and I think he had made a point, and I want to reinforce that point. That if you are catching 15% of the people who are committing crime, 75% or 85%, right, is not being caught. How are you going to deter them? Who are you going to punish? The 15%? And let us be clear. Let us be clear. If you were to do an assessment of those persons who are going to spend 15 years in prison, mandatory, these are not the masterminds. Most of these persons are likely most of these persons are likely to be first-time offenders.
Absolutely.
In circumstances where they would not have had any choice but to comply.
Absolutely.
Now
Absolutely.
that cannot be just.
The snakehead's still out there.
And the issue is not the political directorate. The issue is the Jamaican electorate, because they subscribe to trading security for freedom and liberties.
Yes.
That is where we are.
Let me come in here just to buttress the point you have made, Mr. Brown, regarding the cleared up rate, and to give of some statistics here. This is at least it is 2017, but it makes the point in terms of what's in front of me. From January 1 to December 2017, there were 1,562 murders. And of that, 687 cases, 43% was cleared up. So we're looking at a cleared up rate of less than 50%.
A little bit less than 50%.
That makes the point. And then those were words for shootings.
And clear up there don't mean solve.
No,
right.
Yeah.
Right. We know what it means that they arrest them.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that they arrest them, but no evidence.
It doesn't mean
no conviction. Exactly.
Yes. So we go on to have 1,421 again, and only 500 of those were cleared up, 35%. So that makes the point about what we're talking about as it relates to cleared up.
Right. So let's
the first-time offenders, and I'll just mention one more example. Just last week in Sunday's Gleaner, it was mentioned about some persons whom every Christmas Food for the Poor pay for them to be released from prison. And one of them, Mr. Brown, as you're saying, was a youngster of about 20 years old or so, if not less, who had been caught driving without a driver's license and was in prison with hardened criminals.
Yes.
First
Right.
offender, as you're making the point.
No, exactly. And what is going to happen is that more first offenders are going to be caught in this dragnet of harsh punishment, because the hardened criminals, in order to avoid a 15-year mandatory sentence, is going to demand that persons without criminal records carry their guns with their gun bag, so to speak, right? So it is setting it up. Even the Chief Justice has come out and indicated that people are known avoiding plea bargain, because why are you going to plea bargain when you're certain to get 15 years? You take a risk if you're going to get 15 years. So it is creating a problem. Even the minister himself acknowledged that it is a problem. So, I mean, the fact is that this is a knee-jerk reaction. And we don't need to talk to the politician. We need to talk to the people of Jamaica. They need to understand that these things are cosmetic. They are not effective. When you talk about solution, here's one. If you have 1,400 murders per year, how many murders does one detective have to deal with? A colleague of mine told me that one detective probably have 200 murders dealing with, right? Can he solve 200 murders? So the point here is that, one, you need to know, look at your manpower, get more detectives, more homicide detectives, more training, equip your forensic lab. He had made the point that rather than have a central forensic lab, which is in Kingston, you should have regional forensic labs, right? Now I hear the administration saying that they have been spending money on the security forces, but I think it's on the JDF rather than the JCF. And the JDF is not a police organization.
It's a military organization.
And they should not be engaged
in police
routinely in policing activities, right? We saw in Augustown where the soldier knocked out the eye of the
Young lady.
civilian,
Yeah.
right? He's trained, they are trained to kill. They are not trained to police.
Yeah,
So the government has misplaced its priority in terms of setting soldiers and civilian population. They need to be just more money on the JCF, equip the JCF with need, raise their salaries. They need to go back to attracting.
Okay. We're losing Arnaldo there. So
I have often wondered why we don't,
particularly in the rank.
Arnaldo, we're losing you. We haven't heard what you said in the past 30 seconds. So go ahead. Go ahead, Paul.
I've often wondered why we don't double at least the establishment of the JCF. Get more police in, because as we said that the SOEs have shown that presence, situation policing, ratchet up and increase the establishment of the JCF. Instead of the attrition in the JCF is a matter of concern as well, because of working conditions and so forth. Look at even the matter to do with their overtime payment. It has resulted in even the chairman of the federation being interdicted because
all right, so
in trying to get it done.
I appreciate that example there. Arnaldo, we have just a couple of minutes left, but please, you are invited to come back on the show next week, because we have to dig into your brain a little bit more, because you have some really great points alongside Paul here that can make the points that we need to make to the general public. But I'll just have you guys just give your last 1 minute shout out or shots out there, please.
Look here, let me start. I don't want to give the impression that we are here just simply to criticize, and so that it might be interpreted that, oh, there's a kind of anti-government stance. No, I am a concerned citizen and an engaged citizen who has an interest in the affairs of my country. I have lived here since I was born, and I don't have citizenship in any other country, and I have no interest in migrating anywhere else. So my interest is as a citizen to see a country that is well-run, well-governed, and safe. The promise of independence, as Norman Manley articulated it, was that we would go on now to create a safe and happy home for every Jamaican. That's what I'm talking about. And so what we're saying is that looking on as citizens and seeing futile efforts being repeated, let us look at the thing more holistically and more fundamentally, take the long view, take the necessary actions that will yield the outcomes that we're looking for in the long run. Band-aids are not going to work.
Thank you so much for that. Really great words. Arnaldo.
Yes, in 2007, I was part of the JCF review task force, and a body of work has been done making some recommendation as to how to improve the JCF and how that improvement would impact crime. That work was completed in 2008. And this is one more in a series of reviews that have been done over years, where recommendations have been made in terms of addressing the challenge that we have in crime. I don't think we need any more legislation. What we need is the political will to implement the recommendations that have been made. And if we do that over time, it's not going to happen in a year, it's not going to happen in 2 years, probably 10 years, 15 years down the road, we'll see the type of sustained, decrease in the levels of violent crime that we desire. It's not going to be overnight. And I think programs like these, platforms like these are very important to sensitize the citizenry that their rights are under threat and that they need to wake up and to resist this sophistry about security versus freedom. In a free society, no one should be choosing between security and freedom.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Thank you. Thank you so much, both of you. And we'll see you, Paul, recommendation for 2000. Okay. Let me read that. What did you say? Recommendations for the 2008 strategic review of the JCF, crime reduction and control, improving, public safety, citizen security, organizational restructuring and capacity building, enhancing staff welfare, enhancing professional standards, efficiency through technology, communications, and public engagement. Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, guys. We'll see you again next week. And Arnaldo, come on next week and make sure you say have better things so we can engage us, brethren.
Well,
Once again, Leo,
I
for the
hope
opportunity
fix
to
them
be on this
problem.
platform. Yes.
Say that again, Arnaldo. I heard you, Paul. Arnaldo.
Yeah, I'm saying I hope Flow fixes their problem.
Okay, great. All right, see you again. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, gentlemen, and your viewers as well. Yes.
All right,
okay.